Civic debuted in July of 1972, but it's far from the car that you know today. In fact, it was Honda's first automotive success. It brought them into the ranks of Toyota and Nissan, which at the time were the Japanese manufacturers that actually had really decent sales. And after 50 years since the introduction of the Honda Civic, Honda introduced the 11th generation Honda Civic. And if you have an 11th gen Civic, you're most likely one of us. You know, one of the ones that wants to make their Honda Civic stand out from the rest. And today we're gonna be telling you exactly what wheels will fit and what won't fit on the 11th gen Civic. Welcome to Fit Check. All right, so before we can get started on telling you what wheels you can change to, we need to kind of address exactly what may have come on your car right now. So let's talk about the 5 basic trim models: LX, EX, Sport, Touring, and SI. Yes, there was sedan and hatchback, but what you should know about all of these vehicles is they will all have a similar type of fitment range. The one trim that people are going to say at this point that we have neglected would be the Civic Type R. Now, hang out with us to the end of the video and we'll kind of get into some of that and kind of allude to why we're skipping that car right now. So for all these trims mentioned above, all of them are going to share the same bolt pattern, 5 on 114.3 or 5 by 4.5, and they're all going to use the same hub size of 64.1. So if you're going to be using a hub ring in some of your aftermarket wheel choices as we go forward, you should understand that what you're going to find is the center bore of the wheel that you're purchasing, and you're going to buy a hub-centric ring down to 6410. And what that will allow you to do is make the wheel essentially hub-centric when you put it on and bolt it on. So that's just a little disclaimer and a friendly piece of advice. Okay, so depending on which trim you have in your car, you're either gonna have a 16.7 at a 45, a 17.7 at a 45, or an 18 by 8 at a 50. And if you're gonna use the same tires that came on these wheels from the factory, then you're gonna wanna retain them with a wheel size that's basically similar to what's on your car now. Now, when it comes to wheels, the 11th gen Civic is extremely flexible, meaning that it can take anywhere in a diameter wise from 16 inch to 20 inch. And in addition to that, when we start to pick a wheel option for your car, we're gonna have to break this down in some sort of way of keeping track of exactly what the fitment looks like. So we're gonna break this down into 3, maybe 4 categories. The first one is gonna be no hassle. That's gonna be a fitment where you're gonna be able to bolt it on the car, ultimately be able to use a similar size tire from stock, really not have any issues, not have to think about anything. The next category we're gonna do here is gonna be a slight flex. This is gonna be a category where you are gonna change your tire size, but you are gonna be able to get a little bit more wheel and you're gonna be able to fill out the wheel wells, but without having to do any modifications. So this will give you the most amount of wheel that you probably can put onto your vehicle without really having to do too much. So this is where most people are probably gonna fall in if they want to upgrade their vehicle or try to fill out those wheel wells without having to really do any modifications or upgrades. Okay, the last category we're gonna call all the wheel, and basically what that means is this is the most amount of wheel that you could fit within the wheel well of these trim models, but you're gonna have to do it with a little bit of caution. We'll kind of get into exactly what that caution means. Let's start with the people that do not want to buy new tires. You wanna keep what's on the car, and you wanna be able just to swap some wheels in, give it a different appearance. Here's the thing, if you've ever watched any one of our videos, when we talk about tire size, the first thing we say to you is you need to go to that tire manufacturer's website and look at a column called approved rim width. If you look at the size on the tire that you have and manufacturer, it will give you an approved rim width. Now, anywhere within that area, you should be okay to use that tire. And then you can follow the rest of what we're about to propose here. Now, when it comes to being able to use your stock tires, the width that you're gonna wanna kind of use is gonna be really mainly based on the tire size that you'll find on that approved rim width that we just spoke about earlier. Just try to stay around. If you're going to a 16.7 or 16.7.5, and you're staying in that realm where you're using a 7 to 7.5 inch wide wheel, you're gonna wanna be in that 40 to 45, 38, somewhere around there to make sure that you're still in kind of the proper fit for your car. Okay, so if you're good with changing your tires, then what we can basically do is we can go anywhere from a 7-inch wide width to an 8.5 inch wide width, 7 inch being right around a 45 to anywhere from an 8.5 to around a 42. Now this is a lot of range. You get an 1.5 inch in width kind of range that you can go to, and you also get some offset variables that you can go with. Using a 7 to a 45 all the way to, let's say, an 8.5 at a 42, this is a good look and will make sure that you can bolt these wheels on without really having any problem. And as long as you have the right size tire, you should be good to go. Now, when it comes down to no hassle fitments, I guess if I'm gonna give one recommendation, I would say do an 18.5 ET42. I think it's a good sweet spot. It doesn't require any modification at all. The other thing is, remember that there was a factory 18-inch trim that would have used that same wheel size. So I think by putting an 8.5, 42, you kind of getting the best of both worlds. You're getting a much more aggressive width wheel and tire, and I also think that you're still staying within that stock parameter. All right, so let's move on to some slight flex options. When it comes down to slight flex, we're gonna wanna stay within a specific range, because if we over tire the car in any way, we could have rubbing issues, and we don't wanna have that. So the slight flex is, the goal is to make sure that we fill out the wheel well, but without going overboard, right? So no modifications here, 8.5 inch, right around an ET35, and you can go up to about a 9 out of 40. Again, this is to fill out the wheel well without really causing any issues with modification. Don't over tire the car, put the right proper size tire on the car, and you will be good to go. I think 8.5 personally is right in that sweet spot. So 18, 8.5, ET35, it's gonna fill out the wheel well. It's also not gonna look anemic in any way, but it's still gonna be giving you an aggressive look without having any issues or things you have to compromise with. And again, any of our 17, 18, or 19-inch wheels, in fact, most of our Flowform wheels will fit no problem, so you have a lot of range and options to be able to choose from in this category. Okay, we're into our aggressive category, and the one thing I should point out is this is going to narrow up as far as the width options here. So 9.5 inch wide from an ET40 to down to about ET35. This is all the wheel that you're gonna get. This is it, all the wheel. You can't really fit too much more in here, because now you're starting to play with going inboard and crashing a little bit because of the offset, and possibly having an issue where you're rubbing on the fender. This is really important, especially if you're gonna be lowering your vehicle or doing any kind of little modifications like that. So this is one of those ones, and the reason we call it aggressive is because you're starting to enter into the range where just doing the wrong thing in one direction could potentially cause you some issues. Put too large of a tire on the car, too wide of a tire, you could have rubbing issues. Try to lower your car too much, not have the suspension adjusted, maybe your alignment's out of whack. This could cause some rubbing issues. So you're gonna wanna play this lane very carefully. And if you have any questions, feel free to throw them below, or to be able to contact a local wheel and tire professional to make sure you're kind of right in that lane. Now, when it comes to aggressive, if I had to pick, and personally, I would choose an 18 by 9.5 ET40. We did one in a B profile, especially in the Ultragram, and it looks killer on this car. Here's one of Jim's cars. He's our sales manager, and it looks fantastic. This is a really good fit. You can see it's a little aggressive, but it allows you to put a little bit more tire on the car and still be able to push that baby right to where it needs to be. There are a lot of fitments that us as car people will go ahead and put on cars that we technically know doesn't fit. Now, we can't condone this, and we're telling you not to do it. However, we're gonna acknowledge the fact that people will do it, and when they do it, you can do it! We want them to understand what they're getting themselves into. So, when you start to get 9.5 inch wide, and you start to go lower than about a 34 millimeter offset, that's where you start to introduce things that will rub. You have to be careful about the tire size you're using, where your ride height's at, and exactly how you set up your car will play into how the car will actually handle and how the rubbing may impact your life. So when you start to see those people that are rolling out there in the street and they're running 10-inch wide wheels, 10.5 inch wide wheels, or even 9.5 that starts to get lower than that 35, they're doing stuff to kind of make everything work. It's not that it can't be done.
Anything's possible. Anything's possible!
It's that when you do it, it requires a certain pathway to get there successfully. And I'm just saying that depending on how your path has come before you put the wheels on or how it goes after you put the wheels on, you potentially could end up in some issues. So for the people that have it on their car right now and gonna argue with me, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people that haven't made a wheel purchase, and I'm trying to give them information that they can research before they get into something that they're unhappy with. Help your brethren out, explain to them what you did, and you can do it in the comments below. This is a great place for you to be able to share your knowledge and what you've actually done. Okay, so let's quickly double back to the Civic Type R thing. I don't think the Civic Type R should fall into the 11th Gen Civic category for our videos, and here's why. One, if you own the car, you're gonna make the argument that the Civic Type R, while it's the same platform, is not the same car, and I would agree with you. And to back it up, here are some facts. First thing is, it's not even the same bolt pattern. It's a 50120. So the original Civic that we were talking about here in the 11th Gen Civic is a 5x114.3. This is a 5120, not the same car. Additionally to that, the car does have some more room to be able to put a little bit more width or tire size on the car than the 11th Gen Civic and the trims that we just talked about before this. And because of that, we kind of want to be able to focus it on its own merit. Now, the other thing about the Civic Type R, whether it be the FK8 or the FL5, is they have a similar wheel fitment. We just want to be able to cover it in depth, especially since these are the only two Civic Type Rs that we got here in the US, and we want to make sure that we do it justice. Anyhow, if you have made it this far, thank you for watching. We appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed to our channel already, this is a great time to do it, and that like button is just calling your name if you want to give it a whack. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will catch you on the next one.